From a flock of geese that literally saved Rome to a dog that sniffed its way to ancient art, we're counting down the animals that accidentally rerouted the course of human history. Section 1. The monkey that killed a king. Kicking off our list is a moment from 1920 that sounds truly unbelievable. King Alexander of Greece was taking a stroll on his palace grounds when he tried to break up a fight between his German shepherd and a pet monkey. Out of nowhere, another monkey jumped in and bit the king. The wounds seemed minor, but they quickly became infected. Just a few weeks later, the king was dead from sepsis. His unexpected death threw the country into a political crisis that led to war. Winston Churchill later summed up the catastrophic fallout by suggesting that, as a result of the Greco-Turkish war that followed, 250,000 persons died of this monkey's bite. Section 2. The wolf that became a dog. The bond between humans and dogs feels ancient and essential, but it all started by chance. Picture it. Over 15,000 years ago, the friendlier, less aggressive wolves realized that human campsites were a great place to scavenge for leftovers. This accidental partnership changed everything. Dogs gave us security, and their incredible senses made us better hunters. Some researchers even theorize this alliance was so critical it might have given early humans the edge they needed to survive the brutal Ice Age. Section 3. The Unwitting Astronaut. Laika. In 1957, a stray dog wandering the streets of Moscow became the most famous animal on the planet. Her name was Laika, and she was the first living being to orbit the Earth, launched aboard the Soviet Sputnik 2. Her mission was tragically a one-way trip, as the technology to bring her home didn't exist yet. While her story is heartbreaking, Laika's sacrifice provided the first-ever data on how a body reacts to the harshness of space. That information was an accidental, but absolutely crucial stepping stone for every human spaceflight that followed, paving the way for Yuri Gagarin's historic mission. Section 4. The horse that shrank the world. For most of human history, the world felt impossibly vast. But around 3,500 BCE, everything changed when humans in Central Asia first tamed the horse. Suddenly, distance collapsed. This one species completely transformed transportation, communication, and even how we fought wars. Empires rose and fell from the saddle. Trade routes connected continents, and ideas spread faster than ever before. The horse didn't just change history, it set it to a gallop. Section 5. The cat that domesticated itself. Here's a fun one. Unlike almost every other animal we have a relationship with, the cat's journey with us was on its own terms. As humans started farming in the Middle East, our grain stores attracted a ton of rodents, and cats, being cats, saw an opportunity. They just showed up and started hunting the pests, creating a perfect, accidental partnership. We got a pest controller that protected our food supply, and they got an all-you-can-eat buffet. This act of self-domestication made them the accidental guardians of early civilization. These stories are just wild, aren't they? It's incredible to think how a simple, unplanned moment could have such a massive impact. Which animal's story has surprised you the most so far? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all of our future explorations into the past. Section 6. The farm animals that built our world. It is impossible to pick just one for this spot. So we're grouping the true, unsung heroes of civilization: cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs. When they were first domesticated around 9,000 BCE, the goal wasn't to build cities, but that's pretty much what happened. They provided a steady source of food and materials like wool for clothes from sheep, or the ability of hardy goats to help people survive in tough climates. Pigs were an efficient source of protein, and eventually, cattle provided the heavy labor that made large-scale farming possible. Without them, permanent settlements and complex societies simply wouldn't exist as we know them. Section 7. Dolly the sheep and the clone that changed tomorrow in 1996. A sheep named Dolly quietly changed the future. She was the first mammal ever to be cloned from an adult cell, a monumental scientific achievement. But her creators couldn't have predicted the full impact. Dolly's existence proved that a specialized cell could be reprogrammed to create a whole new life, a concept that was once pure science fiction. Her birth accidentally launched a global debate on ethics and supercharged the field of stem cell research, setting modern medicine on an entirely new path. We live in a world where anything goes viral, but some things hit different. A video game can take the internet by storm, but nothing compares to what happened to a small shop in Scotland. It all started when the owner's father passed away, leaving him with a hefty tax bill. With no way to pay it, he had only one option to keep his father's store open. To do this, he needed to sell 6,000 items. He priced each at £1, thinking it would take forever to sell them. That's when one savvy shopper realized there was a catch. Each item was actually worth more than £1. Soon, customers started paying £10 or £20 for each item, thinking they were getting a great deal. What they didn't realize was that the store owner had put a special code on the tag. If you paid more than £1, you could take whatever else you wanted without paying extra. The news spread like wildfire, and soon the store was a sensation. In just 2 hours, everything was sold out, and the store owner managed to pay his taxes and save his father's legacy. Before smartphones and social media, people used to meet face to face. In ancient Rome, around 1,800 years ago, it was common to send messages by carrier pigeons. One day, a pigeon arrived at the Roman Emperor Augustus's palace with a message. The messenger had gotten lost, so Augustus's wife, Livia, took it upon herself to send a second pigeon with instructions to find the first one. This system worked surprisingly well. The second pigeon would carry a note describing the first pigeoness' appearance and wait for it to arrive at the next stop. There, someone would read the message and send it on its way. This method allowed for quicker and more reliable communication across vast distances. And while it might seem insignificant today, back then it was a major development in information sharing. Even though they never met, Livia and the messenger both played key roles in improving communication. Without her initiative, the practice of sending replacement pigeons might have never caught on. There's been a decline in bees and other pollinators worldwide. But for one farmer in China, it wasn't a problem. He had the perfect solution to ensure his crops were pollinated. It all started when he noticed that his tomatoes were a dull yellow color. Instead of discarding them, he decided to use them as compost. Little did he know that this seemingly small decision would lead to an extraordinary discovery. After adding the compost to his fields, the plants grew incredibly large and the cucumbers reached a record 18 inches long. Intrigued, he decided to repeat the process. He collected seeds from the cucumbers and planted them, and the results were even more impressive. The next year, the cucumbers grew up to 2 feet long. This unexpected success continued for several years, and soon he had over 10 acres of land covered in giant cucumbers. The secret behind his bountiful harvest was actually quite simple. Tomatoes naturally contain trace amounts of gibberellins, which are plant hormones that promote growth. By composting the tomatoes, these hormones seeped into the soil and were absorbed by the cucumber plants, causing them to grow unusually large. The farmer stumbled upon this accidental discovery, which not only saved him money, but also revolutionized agriculture in his region. Today, farmers use synthetic gibberellins to increase crop yields. But back then, it was a game-changing innovation that helped feed his community and inspired others to try new methods of farming. The ancient Egyptians kept many pets, including monkeys, falcons, and even crocodiles. However, it was their dogs that truly stole the show. These pampered pooches were often depicted in artwork alongside their beloved owners and were considered symbols of good luck. But one dog in particular achieved a level of fame that no other ancient Egyptian dog could match. His name was Rewrote, and he became the first dog to travel to the afterlife. You see, when the pharaohs died, they were mummified and buried with their favorite possessions. However, Rewrote's owner was particularly fond of his dog and wanted him to join him in the afterlife. So after Rewrote died, the pharaoh's servants embalmed the dog and buried him alongside his master. Archaeologists discovered this unusual burial in the Valley of the Kings and were astonished to find that the dog's mummy was adorned with collars, bracelets, and even a special collar that read Rewrote, the friend of the car of the owner. This discovery was a pivotal moment in understanding the ancient Egyptians' love for their pets, and was the first evidence of a dog being specifically chosen to accompany its owner into the afterlife. Ancient Greek statues are known for their perfect and idealized features, but one sculpture, in particular, stands out. It's called the Discobolus and depicts a handsome young man preparing to throw a discus. But something about the statue has always bothered art historians. The man's body is perfectly proportioned and muscular, but his facial features seem slightly off. In fact, the Discobolus has become a popular subject for comedians and satirists to poke fun at due to his exaggerated and somewhat goofy features. For centuries, scholars have debated whether the statue is supposed to represent the god Apollo or another famous athlete. But now we know the truth. After a recent study, it turns out that the sculptor was actually working with a chimpanzee model. See, back in the 18th century, chimps were all the rage in Europe. People loved to dress them up in human clothes and parade them through the streets. And it seems that the sculptor was so impressed by a particular chimp that he decided to use it as inspiration for his latest project. The only problem was that the chimp's face didn't exactly look like Apollo's. In fact, the Discobolus turned out to be the first Western sculpture to feature a non-human face, which might explain why it looks so familiar to us today. This discovery is a huge deal because it is the first time we've seen evidence of a chimp being used as a model in Western art, and it shows just how important these creatures were to human society at the time. Plus, who knows, maybe the sculptor was onto something. Maybe he thought chimps were so human-like that they could be the perfect inspiration for a statue of Apollo. Or maybe he just thought it would be funny to put a chimp face on a god. Either way, the Discobolus is a fascinating piece of history and a reminder that sometimes art can surprise us in the best ways possible. Hey, everyone! Thanks for tuning in. And remember, if you'd like to continue learning about amazing history, you can check out more content.